Hi, thank you for tuning in to 12 Step Up. Um, Again, we focus on 12-step programs and recovery. Today we have Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
You want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I am from Vermont. I'm French Canadian, and I lived there for about 20 years. Went to school in Canada, which is very exciting, and probably contributed quite a bit to where I ended up for a while because it's a big party city. And then I lived in Florida for 10 years, made my way to Tri Cities a couple of years ago. And I work for a recovery treatment center. I'm a recruiter, so I'm privileged to hire people for a living that were the type of people that helped save my life at one point. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about how your um, recovery started, and we'll talk about um, you have a couple of recovery um, stories for us, a couple recovery, some background on two different recovery programs. So you want
Yeah.
to go ahead and start us off with whichever one you want.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of things in recovery are really linear, but my path to getting um, there actually kind of was. So I am what I affectionately call myself is a buy one get two free. So I am in recovery from drugs. I'm in recovery from alcoholism, and then I am also an eating disorder survivor, as well as I make sure to provide care and thought and maintenance to my mental health. So
So you're kind of badass.
I prefer well-rounded
Okay.
or just wide-reaching.
Okay.
Um, But so again, I grew up in Vermont, so we had more weed in our yard than actual weed. So it's just the way that I grew up. And I did make a commitment to stop doing drugs when my ex husband and I got together, which kind of left the door open to start drinking more. Um, and I went to again a really big college, but I was from a really small high school, so I was like the shizzle at my high school, and I got to college and I wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, and there were just a lot of girls there from really rich backgrounds that just I felt really unspecial. Um, and that stuck with me, that feeling of unspecial and just continuing to party. And after I graduated, I had a really tough year. My grandma died in my arms. My dad had a really unexpected quad bypass surgery. I got married and I moved from a really small town in Vermont to a really big town in Florida. Like I'd never made a U-turn before I moved. So, um,
Pretty small.
yeah, pretty small. More cows than people till I was 16.
Okay.
And everything was just out of my control. And my switches told me that there was one thing I could control, and that was how much food I put in my body and how quickly I could get it out. So, my eating disorder was born, I suppose.
How old were you when that?
I was about 22 when things started to get serious,
Okay.
or when I started to use that as my coping mechanism for life and that unspecial feeling. Um, and I'm a fairly small but sturdy female at this point. I'm about 110 pounds, but at my sickest, I was about 75. So things had gotten so bad that my family was suggesting, demanding, pleading for me to go to inpatient. And the way that I got out of that was to say that I would eat. But to eat, I had to get completely obliterated drunk first, and you got to eat 3 times a day. It's 7 days a week. So I became a round the clock drinker for 10 years after that.
So would you say that your eating disorder fueled your drinking, or was it like, was it a progressive thing as far as like your drinking, your drug use? Was it progressive, or was it like just like normal teenage stuff, or was it just gradual progression?
It's a great question because I think a lot of people that question sticks with them throughout their recovery.
Right.
How did I get there? What happened first? Especially if you have multiple diagnosis or dual disorders, you always want to know which one came first, which one's my main one, which one's varsity versus JV.
Right. Right.
And I struggled with that question for a long time, and I just kind of gave up, wondering which one came first or which one. But I mean, growing up, I'm the type of alcoholic or person in recovery that you kind of hate when you first hear my story because I had a perfect childhood. My parents have been together since ninth grade. My brother's like a super duper awesome person. I didn't want for anything, like we were we had the first like bag phone in our car in our town, like it was like pretty awesome. And the only thing that younger, my mom was a oopsie baby. She was a French Canadian. She's 20 years younger than her siblings. So I had a lot of loss in my family. That was it. Like I was a pallbearer like a dozen times. But outside of loss, my childhood was great. So I partied like a regular kid. I'd wear bike helmets to parties and beat the cops on my two wheeler
That's
and get
right.
out of there, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your progression from your eating disorder and how far it took you and where was the point where it was the point.
The point where it was the point. And I think I also have a few because I think that's a question we all ask ourselves too: is
Yes.
when
Yes.
did it get that serious, or when was there no turning back?
And I'm sorry if I ask some of these questions because I honestly don't know anything about eating disorders. And again, this is 12 step programs, anything recovery. And so this is why I decided to kind of interview her before the interview because I don't know anything about eating disorders. I really don't. And so right now I'm actually learning, and
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure as I'm learning, our viewers are going to be learning, and so you're
yeah.
going to touch somebody's life. So
Yeah. And like I shared with you, it's women in recovery from anything have there's shame built into female
right,
recovery, sometimes potentially more than male recovery. And when you also venture into eating disorder territory, it's expounded, and it's the deadliest combination for adult females on the planet, and it's just not talked about. So I do appreciate the opportunity to talk about
absolutely,
both programs. Um, and so, gosh, and that's actually today is an anniversary that is a hard anniversary for me. 6 years ago today, I woke up after um, what what my insurance company called the most difficult case they've ever seen. So in 60 seconds, I totaled 6 cars, a wall of my own house, a washer dryer, a water heater, a water main, the garage door of my neighbor, and his two vintage Mercedes in the garage. Um, and I didn't go to jail and I didn't die. And my family was there for me the next morning to try to help me, and I told them to get the fuck out of my house. So that's today. So that's a hard day for me, but a great day to share and help other people. Um, so I obviously had to get pretty sneaky and avoid treatment then too. So
right,
I just became a lot more secretive about things, um, and it led to acute pancreatitis at the age of 35. I again, I work at a treatment center, and I was feeling kind of yucko, and I went to one of my nurses, and they're like, "You have an ulcer. Go to the walk-in clinic." And I walked into my doctor, and I left in a ambulance. I was in total organ failure as a 35-year-old woman, and I did survive that. And they told me if I drank again, I would die. And all it took was knowing that I had one Mike's Hard Lemonade in the vegetable drawer of my fridge, and I was leaving the hospital too, and the doctor grabbed my side and squeezed really hard, and I almost fainted. And he said, "That's how you're going to feel when you take a sip of your first drink." And I knew
oh
the pain
my
I was going to be in. I knew it, and it did not matter to me, because that's how far in I was. It's the only thing I knew. It's the only thing that was going to try to mask some of the shame of what I had just put my parents through. So I drank again. I was hospitalized again, and I was told that when the fire truck found me, I was completely blacked out in my driveway with my amazing, amazing rescue dog in the driveway, just sitting with me, not knowing what to do. And they got me to the hospital, and there wasn't a bed for me. And for anyone who's been through pancreatitis, which is a lot of people in our recovery world, it's extremely painful. And I finally decided I was ready to do something. Just screaming out in pain for my mom, all alone on a hospital bed, and I decided to go to treatment right then and there.
awesome.
Yeah.
That awesome. I'm kind of speechless a little bit. I don't know a lot about this, and I'm very appreciative of you for doing this because I know. I'll give you a little short story. My daughter at one point was um, we were concerned about her,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what to do. And my oldest daughter from my first wife, and So I remember her answer was like, "To just get over it, shut up and just eat." And I remember the pain in my daughter's eyes, and it's yeah, I'm getting a little teary-eyed,
It's
but
okay. We don't understand it ourselves,
yeah.
you know.
So that's why I appreciate this topic actually quite a bit. So, anyways, um, so
Treatment center selection.
right,
I think that's important because there's specific places for eating disorders. There's specific places for alcoholism and drug addiction and mental health. And boy, did I have a job ahead of me, you know. The first time I was in the hospital for pancreatitis, I was on some pretty heavy pain meds. And when I got out of the hospital, detoxing off of those drugs was just something I didn't want to go through again. So on day two of my second hospital stay, I told them I'm out, like no more. So I was not on any pain meds, and just googling my butt off. And I ended up going to a place because the first question they asked me was about me, and it wasn't about how I was going to pay. They wanted to know about me, if I had any other issues, what I was looking for out of treatment and recovery. And I knew exactly that that's where I was going to go. So, and from the very first second, I've approached recovery with everything that I deal with. Every single time I go to a 12-step meeting, every single time I'm working with someone else or listening to someone else, it's how is this going to help me maintain recovery from everything that threatens my life and my happiness at all times.
that's rad, that's rad. And I think a lot. I know a lot about treatment centers. I've dealt with a lot of them. Not, I've only been to one, and
Good for you.
well, they escorted me off
Yeah,
because
there
I
you go.
couldn't do certain things. Um, but I was involved with a lot of treatment centers regarding, I mean, drugs and alcohol. So that's it, or mental. But that was about it. That's
Hmm.
all the experience. And I know most of these places they want to know how good your insurance is,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so you saying that is actually pretty badass. That they asked you that first,
What they ask is important, and I think it's the same thing in recovery. A lot of times, it's you have to advocate for yourself
right?
because no no treatment center, no program, no answer, no structure is perfect for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you can share about what you've been through and where you want to get to, just the better chance. It's casting a wide net. It's don't ask, don't get.
Right.
And so the questions they ask you are just as important as the questions you ask them.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into uh, some of the drinking and drugging.
Sure.
How bad was it for you?
Um, so I was around the clock drinker. We and I am a solutions focused recovered person. So sometimes it's just not my jam to like talk about the or do the compare of how crazy did things get. But I mean, I'm a miracle to be alive. My college diploma is a miracle because I was high the entire time. I would get high with professors before they graded my papers.
That's right.
When I showed up, I got my student ID and an 18 rack of Molson bottles. Um, so for 4 years, I graduated, but I don't think there was a day that I wasn't in some way, shape, or form altered from the state that I was intended to be in as a natural um, recovered woman.
Right.
Um, and uh, there's no other there's no other way to say it except for round the clock. Um, and when I work with other women in recovery, I try to help them see how their life was ridiculous. And for me, my life was ridiculous. To be able to sustain what I needed for my eating disorder and my alcoholism, I put $30,000 on a credit card in 1 year. I stole thousands of dollars from employers that trusted me, from family members. I'd steal from family members and then I'd try to help them find it or blame someone else, just to get what I needed without a care in the world about it. And I think that's the, the ultimate point on the spectrum where you realize that you've got no other choice is when you're willing to do whatever it takes. So I couldn't count. This is how many drinks have you had today? It was how many times has I passed out that day. I drank all day at work, um, at a treatment center. You'd open a door to my cabinet and you just hear cans clanking all around, and you think you're like doing so good and it's so sneaky. So there's a big game part to it. I did feel like I was winning every day that I made it through alive, not in jail, not dead, and not found out. I was winning, and that was good enough for me until it wasn't.
Okay. So it obviously, like a lot of us, gets pretty bad. For some of us, it's there's always something, right? Something that sticks out. For me, there's a few things, but um, then you make the choice whether you want to do something about it or not. How many times did you make that choice?
Ooh, sassy question. Uh, my answer is gonna be my answer is gonna be solutions based, and it's gonna be the only important time is the one where it actually worked. Um, but I can remember being at my niece. So follow me here. My ex husband's brother married my first cousin. So their kids are my niece and nephew, my second cousin, and she also happens to be my goddaughter.
Mm.
And I was too drunk at her christening to hold her because I'd drop her. If we want to go really ridiculous, I found out that because to quote Seinfeld, I treated my body like an amusement park. I couldn't have children. So $10,000 of in vitro down the drain because obviously I was drinking the whole time. So, to make my parents, obviously this isn't working. Let's try something else. I did, what is it? Acupuncture. Um, and they wanted to come see what they were spending their money on. And uh, I knew I couldn't drink that day. So I tried the vodka tampon route, and it didn't work.
Dude, that one's actually first time I heard it was at a treatment center.
It's creative, extremely painful, and not doesn't have that big a payoff. But stay with me here again. Um, I started having DTS on the acupuncture table,
Nice,
full of needles,
nice.
with my parents in the room. That was 2 years before I got sober. 2 years.
Wow.
That car accident that I talked about was 2 years before I got sober. Fired from 2 jobs 2 years before I got sober. I had cancer. I the day I had surgery to have it removed is in my eye. In my eye, I drank knowing I was going to be under general anesthesia. 2 years before I got sober, um, and the all right. The biggest thing is that um, about a year before I got sober, we started noticing that something was not right with my father. I felt it more than other people in my family did. But who's going to listen to a drunk?
Right.
Who's going to listen to a thief? Who's going to listen to a liar? Who's going to listen to someone that can't even? I couldn't put chapstick on without drinking. Who's going to listen to me? Um, and a month after I got out of treatment, my father was diagnosed with rapidly declining vascular dementia. So even knowing that I could have done something to earlier intervene with something that's slowly at this time still taking my father's life, I didn't stop drinking.
Okay. You pushed your body as much as you could, literally as much as you could.
Yeah, I would at nothing. I mean, and that was two-sided for me in early recovery because everyone talks about why did you get so what was the thing, and I wasn't able to say like my kids really wanted me to, or I really wanted to do it for my mom or anything like that. Like I almost died. Like that's it. If I had not stopped, if my insides weren't liquefied, I would still be liquefying
Right.
myself. It sounded weird, but you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And so that's also something I think I want women who have guilt or shame in recovery to know is it doesn't matter what it took to get you there, as long as you are here.
You had a very important milestone a few days ago.
I did. Yeah, the 1st of December, I had 4 years in recovery from everything except for mental health because that is ongoing.
Right.
But yeah, 4 years.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about some solution and what some advice you could possibly give to some of our viewers,
Yeah,
young or old.
young or old, male or female, because we've talked about females in recovery, but eating disorders obviously affect everybody. So just want to make sure that that's known and that everybody has the capability of not only talking about this but getting through it. I again, I knew I would die, and I spent my inheritance in treatment, so I had no other choice. I had no other choice but to see what worked for me. And when I left treatment, my to-do list and my plan, my case management plan, looked like a cruise ship itinerary. I
Nice.
was going to do this program, I was going to do that program, and I had that book, and I was going to do all this stuff. And my recovery was so diluted at the beginning that I didn't know where to go. I felt like an octopus with too many arms trying to do too many things. And for me, I found a program that worked. Sorry about that. For me, I found a program that worked, and I found someone to guide me in that program. And um, I just stuck with it. And, it took almost 4 years for me to be comfortable in recovery to get mental health help. So I think the thing that I want to point out the most is I went into it with no expectations about how long it would take
Right.
or the quality of it, because and this is what someone who helps guide me in my 12-step program, my main program, said to me was that I am Microsoft Excel. I wanted everything on a spreadsheet and bullet points. I wanted to know all the definitions, all the science. When to be successful in recovery, you need to be Microsoft Word. You need to be an open sheet. You need to talk. You need to cry. You need to write. You need to think. You need to share. And um, for me, what my entire solution boils down to is we are as sick as our secrets, but we are as saved as our shares. And the more I open my mouth, the better for you, the better for me, the better for anyone.
That's right.
No matter how embarrassing it is. I mean, I really don't like talking about vodka tampons, but
It
we
is
do
what
what
it
we
is.
do what we have to do.
And I found that a lot of times some things that we're ashamed of, we can actually laugh about now. I know I do.
Yeah, but only because we're comfortable with the people that we're sharing
That's
them
right.
with. I mean,
That's right.
maybe not the internet, but but that's why the recovery me community and 12-step programs are so successful for most people, is
Right.
because we know that it's like the HIPAA act
Yeah.
for people that are trying to get well and stay well. We know that there won't be any judgment because everyone's been through something similar.
Yeah. And I think like for a person like yourself that has that experience, you have a lot of uh, knowledge to give to a lot of people, and um, you're gonna be you're gonna help a lot of people.
Yeah,
And I've known you for a very short time, but you're pretty badass
well
and
rounded, well rounded.
well rounded. I, I like to say well
Oh,
badass.
I appreciate it.
Um, so you are living here now. Are you involved with your 12-step programs out here?
I am, yep. And I'm fortunate to still be involved with the community where I got sober, back in
Nice.
Florida, which is great. I do still work for the treatment center um, out here remotely, so that gives me a little bit more freedom to help give back what was given to me. And I need to give a huge shout out to people that entered into recovery during COVID, because it's insane the way things have changed, but it's also insane the way things haven't.
Right.
And I feel like people that have the right intentions, it does not matter where you are or how old you are or anything like that. The intention, the openness, the willingness to see how ridiculous things are is the major thing.
Yeah.
And because if you look at some of the things we've talked about in the last whatever half hour, there were so many things before I entered into recovery that should have made me stop drinking that didn't. And then if you look at, outside of the things that I've talked about, the week I got out of treatment, I crashed my ex-husband's brand new Acura completely sober. Like, I literally made the cop give me a breathalyzer to prove that I was sober. I crashed it into a brand new Lexus. I got divorced. Like, all those things. I broke my ribs and had my all these things happen. So there's so many things that happen after recovery that on paper I should have drank over. I should have just crashed and burned, and I did not. Um, and what I want people to, my whole goal is to help people get over that first hump. So I don't share these things to um, sound cool or real or compare my story to yours or for the shock value or anything like that. It's just to show people she's not dead. She's not dead, and it's for a reason. And it's because I know that there's a reason that I'm still here. Because even before I was active, I knew that I was protected in some way for a purpose later in life. I got bird flu in Asia. I was emergency medevaced out of the Himalayas with high altitude poisoning, several car accidents. Um, I had this condition where I tore the muscles in my heart away from my chest, like all of these things where I was protected in some way for some reason. And if I had to go through whatever to be able to get here, then that's enough to get you through your worst day. It really is.
It really
It
is.
sounds so. It sounds super touchy feely, but you know what? Recovery can be touchy feely too, and that is a okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that you're here for a reason,
Yeah.
just like I am, just like the next person in recovery. Um, because obviously we don't touch on a lot of the nitty gritty stuff. And obviously, when you're helping somebody, you're probably going to do some sharing about that if you know they need to hear that. But you have a lot of recovery and different things, and I think your story is not complete yet.
Correct. I'm hoping I don't end up like a buy one get three free or anything like that, but I don't think I
It's
will.
not complete.
It's not complete. No, but and you said nitty gritty, and that's it too.
Yeah,
We can focus on where we are and where we were,
that's
but
right.
it's the in between that's so important.
That's right.
And I try to say to people when I'm working with them, I want them to be so present in that moment that I say to them, hey, when you hear someone say, I did the work, I put in the time, that's how I got here. Right now, at this exact moment, you are doing the work. This
That's right.
crying, this writing, this talking, this dealing with me in your face. This is it. This is recovery happening. And I want you to understand it's happening right now. So when you say, I was there, but now I'm here, this is what it looked like.
Yeah, I remember this lady saying, "I do the things to keep the things," or something like that. And when I first heard her say that, I was like, "That's so simple, but it's so deep."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you have to do all that work to get where you are, and that's pretty badass that you point to the person that you're working with. This is the work. This is you're actually doing it, because a lot of times in whatever recovery program you are, you don't know what you're doing.
Or it's glossed over.
Right.
We hear a lot about here's where I'm at, life is so great. Here's where I was, life is so poo poo. But what happened in the middle? It's not as exciting or as
Right.
sexy or as fun as talking about all the crazy shit we did or all the amazing things about our life now. But B didn't happen without everything between A and B.
Yeah, you have to do some work to get somewhere, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like chasing a drink, chasing a drug. You have to do some work to get that drink or drug or whatever,
Yep.
and you have to do some stuff to get to where you are now.
Some stuff and things.
Yeah, we'll just say some stuff,
Minor,
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 minor little
few,
things.
few little tasks.
Just change a little bit about who you are, and that's pretty badass. I think you're a pretty cool person. I appreciate you doing the interview. Is there anything else you would like to tell anybody out there? I mean, this is the fact that you have a wide variety of experiences, and I've never touched on eating disorders, and I think that's pretty cool. And so, if there's anything you want to say to anybody, any of our viewers here, you can anything.
I turned a for-profit consulting business into a for people um, consulting business for people in recovery, where I help them write resumes and figure out how to understand that they're worth something when they don't feel like they have anything to put on paper, they don't feel like they have anywhere to go. And I just want them to be able to see what they're worth, because stigmas, experiences, arrest records, whatever we have doesn't come close to what we could have and what we're capable of and what we deserve. So I guess the only thing is, no matter how many programs you're a part of, how many programs you should be a part of, what should have happened, it doesn't matter. Advocate for yourself, care for yourself, and most importantly, let other people do it too.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, you guys. This was Beth. Tune in next week and we'll see who we have. Thanks.